Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Belonging. It's the Exploring the BAME Experience. It's Imperial as One's interview series where we have a candid interview with members of the BAME community. And this week we've got Mr. Jinhao Xie. I think I've said that right. Double check beforehand, sorry. And he's a research student, but he's more than just a research student. And we're going to be exploring his journey into belonging and how he has expressed himself through the art of poetry. We are in for a treat this week, I can tell you that. So I'm going to hand over now to Jinhao, and we will have our discussion. So Jinhao,
Yeah.
welcome, right? Firstly,
Thank you for having me.
it's really good to have you here this week. And one of the things which I'm really interested in is to understand your story
Yeah.
of belonging and how that's come about. Could you give us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you've managed to be where you are now?
Okay. So my name is Jinhao Xie. That's my last name, and I identify as a queer poet and queer academics. My preferred pronouns are, or not, my pronouns are they, them. I know in the academic world, I didn't really change that for myself because it's really difficult to challenge that, to change everything.
Mm-hmm.
So they still refer me as a he, him, but, but I identify as they, them, or a non-binary person.
Yeah.
I'm from China originally, from the city called Chengdu. I came to the UK for education in 2011, so I've been here quite a while. I've been through the university and then postgraduate. Now I'm doing my PhD in management.
Fantastic.
But on the side hustle is writing poems. Yeah. So yeah, that's a.
So you came over in 2011 to study. How was that in terms of how did you feel welcome? What was it like actually coming here at that particular moment in time?
To me, because I have traveled to England before, so I was quite familiar with the place beforehand. But it was okay because the university was quite welcome to me. They have really good welcoming programs. Although there were, I think it was okay for me as a start. Everything was fresh, you're sort of curious about everything.
Yeah.
You didn't settle in the system yet, so you feel like the system doesn't apply to you until the shock comes. You'll feel like, oh my God, they see me as different,
So how did that make you feel?
Well, before I felt I am foreign anyway, so I came from a different country, so I didn't feel that obtrusive beforehand until I started to experience, like settled in and then get to know people and feel, oh my God, they treat their own people like that too. So that was a bit unsettling to me. And then, over the times I grew more fond of this place and stuff like that. And then all my friends are really nice and I started to feel more belong, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose.
So you said that one of the ways that you started to get your identity, or express yourself was through your poetry. All right. So can you give us a flavor of either some of your poems or that experience of expression,
So,
self-expression?
when I was doing my undergrad, I didn't pay too much of attention in my English until I met a couple of my friends who are brilliant poets, who are also people of colors.
Mm-hmm.
Their names are like Tembi, Nilams. I'm really fond of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they really opened my eyes about how English poetry can do so much
Mm-hmm.
to help one express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. So then I took on this journey of using poetry as a tool and a language for me to express myself more. And one of the first poem I've written, and now it's been published in the book called Slam.
Okay.
It's an anthology of BAME poets in the UK.
Yeah.
Talking about their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of my early works, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
talking about the first encounters or my first experience about people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Ni Hao, hello.
Ni hao, hello.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it.
Hello. When I say hello, I mean Ni Hao, simply meaning you good, my acknowledgement that this is a benign encounter and no one is getting hurt. It's me handing out an olive branch. I mean cherry blossoms. No, that's Japanese. I mean lotus flowers. No, I mean I come here in peace. When you say ni hao, you mean, look, I've made a couple of Chinese friends at university. Funny thing though, I found them everywhere in universities. I thought of learning a new language, but my ni hao is as good as my bonjour. I don't wish to be exotic, you know. So you can begin to tell me your Far East adventure, how you eat, pray, loved your way in Asia, how you found yourself under a Bodhi tree. It puzzles me even how you can find yourself in my motherland, but I am lost in yours. So we just carry on talking English, like it was nothing but a mere greeting. How are you? When I say how are you, I mean 吃了吗? Have you eaten? Did you have your chicken chow mein or your sliced beef in black bean sauce with a bag of prawn crackers? What I want to say is, am I the acquired taste that you find oriental initially? Am I your friend with different colored skin so you can say that you're cultured? What I really want to say is, I don't like sweet and sour. The taste is as foreign to you as it is to me. But I'm still waiting for those crucial lines. So how long have you been here? 6 years. Oh, really? But your English is so good. Thank you. Every thank you translates 对不起. I am sorry. I'm sorry that I've forgotten the beauty of Chinese characters, how each stroke flows like Changjiang Shui. Water runs in the veins of Chinese sons and daughters, the long history of my culture. Legends narrated in scriptures carved in ancient bone fractures, how each stroke interlinks into strong and bold structures and reminds me those weathered brick walls, protecting my ancestors over millennia from intruders. I was sent away with my mother's prayers. She often told me that the moon shines far brighter and is far rounder on the other side of the sea, how she had to let go of this bird to fly for a better opportunity. Every sleepless night, every A, B, C that I've learned is me ripping off timbers and logs in my own language. Piece by piece, I break down the monasteries of my own history. I set them on fire to keep me warm. The fire cries like dragon and flies, unites with the moon home. The flame burns like feathers. Feng Huang turns to ashes and uprise the phoenix. I pour my tears on the fire, ashes to mud. I morph into letters and spit out words that taste like your Sunday roast, your fish and chips, or your English breakfast. And now, when I say hello, I sound like you. When I say ni hao, I sound like you.
Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
that was like my poem to explore that experience of first encountering others or being othered.
I'm lost for words based on that. It's really is incredible. The
Thank you.
vivid imagery which you have put across in that poem is amazing. Your use of language to compare and contrast and convey
Yeah.
so much. I don't even know what to say because it was
See,
just
that's the
beautiful.
thing. I find that poetry gives me the language that I can express myself. Sometimes it's really hard to express in plain language, but poetry can do it and talk about that experience. Oh, some people ask about the
They
book.
asked,
So the book is called Slam. It's published by Macmillan. I think I've sent a link to Wayne.
yeah, I was going to put it in afterwards. I'll put it in now, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's an audiobook out, so all the main poets involved have recorded their own poems, and there were other brilliant poems that you probably have heard of, like Raymond Antrobus, Ding Ada, Nikita Gill. So if you really want to, there were more brilliant poets than me, in this.
Don't underestimate the power of your words. Are
Thank
just
you.
amazing. What I really loved about what you just read was the imagery,
Yeah.
the way in which you used the word ni hao and you explained it from one context and then you explained it from the other context.
Yeah.
That compare and contrasting element was just, it gave the word multiple meanings and identities. Is that what?
Yeah. That's what we yesterday we were talking about,
Yeah.
like Chinese as a language has multiplicity in itself. Like a word can tell you a story, and then that's my sort of initial aspiration from talking about the cultural differences. When we say hello to you in our own language, we don't just mean that hello.
Yeah.
Sometimes hello can be just hi and very
Yeah.
brief, but there is a intention behind those words. How means good, and then there was a lot of recognition there. Yeah.
It was, you said ni hao. What was the word for how are you?
Oh, how are you? We don't say how are you. We say have you eaten?
Have you eaten? Okay.
So yeah, so it's more about, because it's Chinese culture, there's a very prominent food culture.
Yeah.
So you always ask people, "Oh, have you eaten?" As a talking point, like, how's the weather here?
Yeah.
So that's the culture difference we have there, and I want to point it out.
No, it was. I don't know. I'll be honest, guys. I asked for a reading, but I wasn't, and I was expecting something good, but that was just mind blowing. It was amazing.
Thank you so much.
No, seriously, it really was. I remember when we were discussing yesterday how you said that it gives you a voice. Your poetry gives you a voice to express yourself.
Yeah.
I can hear from the words which you've given, the voice which you want to convey.
Yeah.
But where did that voice come from?
I think I suppose the voice comes within mostly. I'm very observant as a person and very self-reflective as a person. So prior to poetry, I was just living my life, I think, like most of us. But after I encountered poetry, it gives me a sort of ritual or practice that our life is more than that. It allows me to pay attention to every minute details of my own experience. And then through poetry, I also encountering other voices, very great writers. Mostly I really grateful for Black intellectuals, Black poets, like Toni Morrison, Gwendolyn Brooks. So I'm sorry, most of them are Americans, and also very recent ones like Raymond Antrobus, so Jamaican British,
Yeah.
and Cat Francois was very spoken words artist on the scene, and my friend Tembi, and she's a brilliant poet. So they gave me tools to talk about this kind of. I feel more related to them because they were talking about how they were wronged or othered, whereas I feel less related to. I'm sorry, but I shouldn't be to white experience, to be honest, because I feel most, particularly white male poets in the past, like the great, who wrote the quartet? I forgot. Anyway. Anyway, like white poets, I feel less. They have this audacity to me to own things. They draw inspiration from nature. They feminize them. They think they are the muse inspired them. They take it. Whereas I feel a lot of people, color poets, they appreciate the differences more. I mean, they acknowledge the differences more. And that's from my reading, particularly. I think they acknowledge the uniqueness of the others more.
Yeah. And it's I'm just reading through the chapters, and I'm looking and seeing how people are relating to that. The words which you had said with regards to how are you was kind of like, not how are you, it's have you had something to eat. It's more of an inclusive and not it's a probing of the inner person. If
almost like inviting you into a home, right? Like, have you eaten? If you haven't, maybe here's some food for you, and which is very common, I think. In most cultures, I think, are very hospitable cultures.
No.
But, and also, on the other hand, like, I would like to share how poetry also enables me to explore my queer experience more. In this poem, in my poetry review, I got published. It's more about, I know I present male with my beard and everything, but we only, as a person, we only being given a body, and we have no choice. But our experience sometimes can differ, depends on the people or bodies we encounter. So this is a little poem I wrote. In the mood for love. Jellyfish pose the ocean's tonsil, tell you this beginning will be a new beginning. Alone, palms over your ears, you listen to your blood cells clap. Sing me a no song. Every jellyfish dreams of being an androgynous nymph. You kiss a boy in a summer shade of blush. Remember the taste, the apple he bit, bitter and sweet. 12 years young, your throat ties knots in your speech. Going home deepens its meaning. Shut the mouth of the door. Your brother kisses his girlfriend on the couch. You smile and forget your tongue in a boy's dream. You stand in front of her, a farmhouse mirror. Your body's asymmetric, nude and crude. Your index finger hovers, paints her into forever, into your chest. Later, she asks why you stayed. Because you found seashells lying on the beach. Because she reminds you of the ocean you once begged to be drowned in. 3 a.m. club, DJ playing Destiny Child's Survivor, deafening your heartbeats. Late night shakes up the next morning. The crowd fades. Scattered rain stains the street. Cat's footprints. The sound peeks through. You disperse into the chasm's neon stream. Oh, the moon. Every jellyfish dreams of being an androgynous nymph. So that was talking about sort of my own sort of sexual identity more.
The imagery again, the imagery which you've conveyed, both the masculinity and the femininity, and how you've ascribed masculinity and to different objects within that poem. was quite striking, and the how you were able to how can I put it, convey a message of one person's reality actually being another person's reality, but from a different perspective. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's what I'm trying to work out. Where did you get the inspiration to look and compare and contrast in those kinds of ways?
I think these things coming from more of my sort of cultural background more, I would say. I do get a lot of influence from my Chinese upbringing, I suppose. And learning English more and getting used to English and having this command actually makes me more appreciative of my own language, or my first language. In return, that gives me back to my English poetry, because I'll be able to convey sort of the philosophy between two languages. That's why the image is very strong, because Chinese is a very graphical language. And also there were a lot of non-conforming terms in Chinese language. So I want to convey that into it as well. And also this particular poem, also inspired by this idea of the jellyfish, where I informed by science, where jellyfish actually, some of the jellyfish, they can self-produce, which I'm jealous of, because I feel, as a human, we have to rely on the other body to reproduce, whereas they don't have to.
Yeah. I remember when we spoke yesterday, where you were saying about the language, the Chinese language, and the characters within each character, or each word or each character tells a story. There's a backstory, and you unpack that backstory. And it sounds like with your poetry, you're unpacking
that
backstory.
So if you were to learn Chinese and then you read my poem, it will make much more sense, and you can read a deeper layer of it. But also, if you don't, the poem still works. So I think that's what I wanted to do, and that's my craft, I suppose.
You're honing that craft. I still can't believe that you said that you only started writing poetry in 2016. Right? What you were wasting your time before. Forget about I'm not going to say forget about the degree. But that image, I still can't get over the imagery that you're able to convey in. I can see it as you're reading it. I can see what I
was living it, so I was writing them.
Explain.
So I'm a very visual person as well.
Right, okay.
So I have to visualize myself into a situation to be able to write a poem. But that also gives me a very sensitive and empathetical ability of others' experience, I suppose. And you said, what happened before poetry? I think I was very interested in language, but poetry was that sort of key open to the language. I'm able to express the inner self more, I think. So it wasn't wasted, I suppose. It was just me living my life very much, paying close attention to it.
What I think about what you've said is actually you're very observant. You observe the world, and then you create the world in your poetry, right? Which I just love. I love the imagery that you're giving, right? What I'm going to ask, someone's sent something through. Your life, how has your life changed since you've started to embark upon your poetry adventure?
How my life changed. I think my life hasn't changed much physically, but in terms of inner development and the sense of belonging, if we come back to that, I feel poetry give me a home to stay, or I almost feel this poetry scene especially is very welcoming, and it's like a big family. So I feel in some way they adopt me. So
Okay.
I was like an adopted child, honing poetry, finding a corner. So I feel poetry gave me that sense of belonging, and also give me this opportunity to connect with others where it's almost impossible. I'm academic in the business world.
Yeah.
Sometimes business can be like very emotionless. You don't talk about your emotion. You don't talk about that, which I want to change that. But slowly. So poetry gave me the outlet to connect with people and talk about a little bit more about the struggles and the journey one discover oneself. Yeah.
There's two words which you just said, which I want to pick up on, which was about the struggle. Okay.
Yeah.
Was there anything which was the trigger, or was there any struggle which kind of like helped you to start to get into the poetry as a way of expression? I'm just trying to understand where this poetry has come from. Was it triggered, or what was it?
Okay. So sounds very lame excuse. Not excuse, but very lame reason. So I started a spark in me was because English is my second language, and I wasn't good at it in terms of writing. So I started to write poetry because I thought poetry is a short form of writing, so I can do it daily practice. And the more practice you do, the better you get, right? So it was only just a gateway for me to sort of practice writing to improve my academic writing. Little I knew, poetry is such deep ocean I step into. Yeah, that's very genuine starting point for me. But once I started to write, I find this liberty of expressing myself, and so I thought, since I've written something, I might share with somebody. And I live in Canterbury, and there's some vibrant poetry scene, so I share with some in the local open mic nights. So, and people liked them, and I get people coming up to me saying, "I really like your poem, you should write more." And then that was kind of encouragement for me to write more about a poem, and then I started to do research, read more, and getting to know people. And a lot of people along the way helped me as well, referring books to me, so that kind of I accumulated the knowledge that I have today, I suppose.
I've got a few people who are coming in with questions. One of the questions which I had asked yesterday was, do you write poetry in Chinese? Which is something which someone else is asking as well. Liz is asking that question.
So it's an interesting question. I think there's expectations, right? When people think when you have another language and do you write in another language. Unfortunately, I have to say I don't write in Chinese. And the reason why being is that I felt I kind of lost the command of Chinese language because I came here when I was 18. My Chinese sort of stopped there, whereas my English advanced way faster than my Chinese. So I feel much more comfortable at home, or sense of belonging in English when it comes to poetry, I suppose. But I'm practicing Chinese more now to one day to be able to translate my English poems into Chinese, because my mother doesn't speak English at all. So whenever I say, "Oh, Mom, I got a poem published," and she'll be like, "What's it about?" So there were some awkward moments about like me translating those poems to her, and I find I do have that guilt, which allow myself to feel that guilt, but not letting that hinder my ability to write poetry.
That's really interesting that you feel at home writing in poetry in English, even though you've got the Chinese heritage, and much of your imagery, I think, comes from that heritage. It's an interesting dynamic.
I think people who are duolingual or multilingual, compared to monolingual people, you actually have that amalgamation. You know, you're living dual reality. You know, living multiple reality. You know, and your brain works magically somehow. You know, maybe that's what quantum physics is about. If you want to talk about, you know, you're in two states, and that kind of transmutes between each other, I suppose. And in my mind, I don't speak any language. You know, it's just a voice. You know, and so when I have to vocally express myself or on paper, the language I have to pick is English.
Okay, fantastic. I've got another question which Moon Lee has just asked. It says, I wonder what your experiences are between living in two countries and cultures, and do you have any times that they are conflicting, i.e. asking you about being a UK-based Chinese person?
I think there were times I wish the two worlds could collide. You know, I wish there were no language boundaries. I wish there were no borders. I wish people would just know each other better, realizing at the end of the day, a mother is a mother, you know, or a person is a person. But there were language problems, and then because our physical beings have created that boundary to remind others, like, oh, you're not like me, there were difficulties for me like that. But most is about how others perceive me rather than how I perceive them, because I like to see people as who they are as individuals. So I hear their stories. So that's my answer to that, I suppose. I'm trying to see the differences. I recognize that, and I find beauty in those conflicts and disjointment, I suppose.
What you've just said is beautiful, and one of the things which I really liked about what you said was that you like to see people as people and to hear their stories. And that's what it's about. To me, that's what it's about. There's that people look and say that there is many things which divides us, but listen to their stories and you'll probably find there's more stuff that unites us than divides us.
And it's a funny, like, when we're talking about that, if we want to tie into a very current affair, you know, how Black Lives Matters is very crucial event for us all of awakening, I suppose. We need to listen to Black experience more, you know. We need to listen to their stories. And then I think a lot of times Black experience are very dismissed, you know. They were like, oh, that's not true. How can police being discriminatory, you know? Or how someone would discriminate you because you're skin color, because I'm white, you know. Nobody discriminate me. I don't feel it, you know. But you have to listen to others and take it as it is, you know. That's one of the beauty I get from poetry, you know. There's no right or wrong of poems, you know. If you want to write a very 2 words, that's a poem. If that means something to you, you know. And if you want to write a whole novel, that's a poem, if that means something to you. Or even just you want to text someone, and that poem, that line, you know, saying I miss you, or give me a call, that's a poem, you know. We can find poetry everywhere if you pay attention to it and you listen to other story, and you will, a poetry allows you to listen to others more as well.
There's a couple of points I keep coming back, because as you're speaking, there's just things which are popping into my head. What it sounds to me as if for you, poetry is a liberation. It liberates you. You're free to express yourself. You're free to be, to just be.
Yeah, to
you're
just
not
be.
to be. You can be whoever you want to be just by
Yeah.
saying ni hao,
Yeah.
or yeah, it's just a frame of reference,
Yeah.
and which is liberating. I think it's absolutely amazing.
Talking about be, I like to share this poem.
Yeah, please.
This poem is kind of dear to me because I feel that a lot of times we want activism to mean something and we wanted to change, we're angry, but also I'm very advocate to self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to take care of ourselves. We need to preserve our energy when it's needed, and then use that energy when it's needed as well. So this one is called Blue Medusa, which is also, I'm obsessed with jellyfish and the ocean imagery, and that's my past. But also it's about how this one jellyfish, I heard from the documentary that they would reverse back to their original state, an egg, when it's find that environment insufferable. And then when the condition was right, they will blossom again and relive again. So they essentially can live forever. But that reminds me that how you can be soft and strong at the same time. And it's written after Mary Oliver's Wild Geese. Listen, this heavy blue whales, and the wailing turns into a poem. You speak the language of water and tell them a tale of disguising a self, what you are truly about. Be careful, unwrap the conceit of my despair. Like a child, you invite them into a good dream of yours. Tell them how heat can fizz and quench thirsty clouds. Carelessly, you are tired of misunderstandings of a free will and resigned yourself on their defined cosmos. Tell others, below this blue surface is ice hot, and do not try to find granite underneath my tentacle nails, and with my blood dampening your shadows, and you need not to flow through the earth you once loved, to nourish other being, to realize your fingertips, your limbs, and your face into fossils for consumption. Carry on and hold onto the tender stems of my tentacles, flirting with crevices of ocean's eye folds. Be sure that one day you will grow strong enough to endure thunder and soft enough to deter pounder. You can finally be this majestic. Tell them if survival is not the ultimate rebellion, what is?
I'm lost for words. That's three beautiful poems which you have written, crafted, and shared with us. And you know what? I'm learning from you, right? Definitely
thank you.
learning
Oh
from
my
you.
God.
No, it's amazing. The simplicity, but the context and the imagery is just, I just can't.
Thank you.
I'm just lost for words. It's
I'm glad
beautiful.
for this platform, and Yanni and Wayne and Imperial College to give you the opportunity, really, because it's unusual to jump out of the poetry scene. When you go to poetry scene, people like poetry and they will enjoy your poem more. And this is a very unique opportunity for me to spread the love of poetry.
No, I've already been looking at the comments online, and as soon as lockdown finishes, right, we need you over at Imperial, right?
Oh wow! It'll be my pleasure.
We want to have you in the flesh, as it were, because your poetry has been absolutely brilliant. Well, I don't want to hog all of the questions, so I'm going to just open it up very quickly to find out if anybody else has any burning questions which they would like to ask you in the final few minutes that we have together. Do we have anyone who would like to just ask a question? If not, I can quite happily go on asking questions.
Wayne, can I ask a question quickly?
Yeah,
Please,
sure.
go ahead.
Sure.
I don't know whether you have ever presented these things back in China. So how do you feel when you go back China and present these poems in English?
I will be nervous, and also I think I would translate them into Chinese to people, because I feel it's important to convey the poetry behind the language, so I think, yeah, that's how I would do it. Yeah.
Okay, just to follow up on that, so I don't know how easy for you to translate, because translation is another aspect,
Yeah.
When you're translating, do you feel you will be comfortable translating it into the feelings that you were trying to express?
I think it will be hard for me. I will try my best and then hire somebody who are very skilled in their craft of translation to do that for me. Yeah. I can do, like, maybe they've done the translation. I'll be like, hey, this is not quite right, because I have the understanding of Chinese. But also, I like to present English version as well alongside it, so people who can understand English, they will see what, the other version as well.
Does anyone else? Because I've got another question just following on from that. Because if you could get it translated into Chinese, this would be a superb text for Chinese students to get a taste of imagery in the English context as well.
Yeah.
Because
and it's not hasn't been done before,
Yeah.
It hasn't been done before,
Yeah.
There were a lot of other Chinese poets who have done that, poets like Bei Dao, and he has done that beforehand. Yeah, but they were quite old, I suppose.
Well, you're not
we need
old.
some updates. I mean, we need some updates. There were some up-and-coming poets, I think, like Yu Youyou, who's a very brilliant Chinese poet. She's a modern, like, 90s kid, writing about Chinese women's experience, and her poems has been translated in English as well. So if you're interested in other Chinese poets,
that would be brilliant. Well, what we'll do is afterwards, if we can get a kind of like a almost like a reading list, that would be excellent. Or some TED Talks or something. Yes, it would be great. I've got two questions which I can see coming in. One's from Sunday, so if Sunday wanted to ask, and if Nicola, if you would like to ask your question afterwards as well, that would be brilliant. Sunday?
Mine is not really a question, it's just a compliment, really. To say,
thank you.
I love to write. I've never tried writing poetry before, but you really inspire me, and I'm going to insist my children start to write poetry.
Please.
All I get them to write
is
math, English, literature, but they have to start writing, actually bringing their mind outside their brain, their body, and put it on paper. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunday. Nicola, I believe you had a question which looks really interesting.
Yes, ni hao. Hello, and
hi.
That's I had a friend from Hong Kong when I was at school, and I remember that was the one word she taught me. So, but yeah, I was struck by your poem, and I often wonder. I mean, I've lived abroad a lot of my life. I came back to the UK 13 years ago, but I am British. But is there a way you would have liked to have been made to feel more integrated and welcomed, either where you came to the UK or shortly afterwards, in terms of how people might speak, ask you questions?
I think people are often more surprised how it's not it sounds like I'm bragging about myself, but it's not. I think people are more surprised at how adaptive I am to the environment, and that's a very I owe that to my parents, my mother particularly, to that education, home education, about you can always change. And then because later I find out because when people of color present themselves into white counterparts, they've been monolithic, they've been seen as a one-dimensional. So people often surprised at how different from their expectations. I think Western media has a huge role playing on that in terms of representation of different ethnic backgrounds, where they not being portrayed as a multi-dimensional characters as other white characters, So when people coming from abroad with that different look, they think they're all the same, They think I can play Kung Fu, and they think I know Jackie Chan, which is stereotypes. And the same way we do have, if you go any other country as well. So diverse representation definitely is very crucial aspects of that. In terms of me wanting to blend in, I think as human, we are social animals. We wanted to be feel belong anywhere we go, So if you go to other places, and I want, you want to belong anyway, even though it's only for 10 years, 1 day, 2 days, it doesn't matter. You want to feel welcomed anywhere because we're all human. We're together.
That's brilliant.
So
I'm going to have to. Oh, sorry. Right. So what I was going to say, I was going to just thank you for your wonderful poetry, and the poems which you read for us today, but also for the insight which you've given us, because there were so many rich things which came about the connectivity that the words can bring to people. It's like the way I'm trying to be a bit poetic myself now, but it's from from the words which you've been saying. It's like poetry brings people together. It's like art without boundaries when you take time to stop and listen. So I want to just say a big thank you for taking the time to share those poems with us today. And I'm definitely, as soon as lockdown's over, we have to have, I'm not even going to call it an open mic, just a session with yourself or a few of your friends. Bring some of your poet friends with you.
Yeah, I would love to.
Because I think that would be an absolutely brilliant session. And I already know that. So I'm going to just say thank you once again.
Yeah. Thank everyone who joined in as well.
Yeah, and thank everyone for coming. What I'm going to do is just quickly share my screen and just advertise what's going to be happening next week. So this week was I thought was excellent. Next week we're going to have Dr. Sonia Kumar, who is the Director of Undergraduate Primary Care Education at Imperial. So she's going to share some of her insights of belonging at Imperial for our students, for herself, and I think it's going to be an excellent session again. So once again, I just want to say thank you to everyone, and it's going to be, so the next session will be Friday the 19th between 12:30 and 1:15. So once again, I'm going to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to stay behind, the recording will stop and we will just carry on.